Welcome to the afternoon session, and we hope you enjoyed the first half of our PGVIS Symposium this year. And this afternoon, we're going to welcome Ema Katrovas with her session Exploration in Vocal Theatre. She will explore about her solo performance, and also she did the workshop with our students since the 19th. 2 days ago. Yeah, so we're going to see how the workshop going and how the performance will be today together. And as a vocalist myself, I can't wait to listen to her presentation and the performance that we'll be looking forward to. So I'm going to pass this to Ema. Thank you so much.
Is it okay if I just speak? Can you hear me? I don't have to use the microphone. Okay. So I was asked to maybe perform something today at the beginning, so I will perform something at the beginning. But it really is part of the lecture already a little bit. It's half lecture, half performance, because it's kind of a collage, and a big part of the collage is a text. And it's a text taken from an interview with Kathy Berberian. Has anyone here heard of Kathy Berberian? Okay. So Kathy Berberian, I will talk about her a little bit later. She's an important singer of experimental vocal music in the 20th century, inspired a lot of composers. And she gave this interview in 1979 where she described the premiere of Aria by John Cage. Have you heard of Aria by John Cage? I think more, yeah. So she describes the reaction of the audience to this premiere. So I will start with that, and then I will go into my lecture. So when I say I mean Kathy Berberian. I'm not talking about myself. It's directly taken from her. The big explosion came in 1958 when John Cage wrote Aria for me. This really shook the ideas people had about vocal possibilities. Could empty your heart without the whole soul. Good. Ooh, breathe, love, breathe forth. I remember the first time I did it was Rome. And it was an afternoon concert. And there were all the usual little old ladies, who were clearly quite shocked by the thing. Oh, that shall continue, making the shell forevermore at rest. And after the concert, there was a question and answer session with John Cage, and I did some of the translating of the questions in Italian and the answers in English, of course. And at one point, this little old lady gets up, really primly, with tight little lips, and she says, "Mr. Cage." Well, it was in Italian, so she said, "Signore Cage." How could you let that lady? That was me. That lady. Legend continuity of that story. I think it's a very funny story about John Cage's reaction to the audience reaction to new music. So I was able to incorporate this little, this 8-minute piece into a longer piece called Viva Lazarus, which was the result of my 2-year artist diploma at the CNSMD in Lyon. It's a really unique program without which I would have never been able to create something like this. I think of it as an empty space to really create anything that you want within 2 years. I don't know of any other program that does this. And I came there with the proposition of doing vocal theater, that I wanted to create a work of vocal theater. Now, what was interesting to me when I was, a young classically trained soprano, I hadn't really, I had kind of heard of appendice, I knew segmenzatre, but I was very much in the classical mode. And then I started discovering appendice's work and and it was like this incredible world at the intersection of theater and singing opened up for me. And I looked for the term vocal theater as I was making this, discovery. And I found out that it doesn't really exist in the repertoire. We have music theater. We have even instrumental theater, which is associated with cappella. She probably coined the term, but we don't have, the vocal theater is not used as a term, interestingly enough. I'm sorry, this is in French because this is from my application to do a doctorate. I will be doing a doctorate on this, and I did it in French, and I did translate it because, frankly, if you speak English, you can see the words. It's very simple. This was my first kind of attempt to try to situate vocal theater inside of the bigger theater context. It will change a lot, I think, over the course of the exploration that I do. But you see here that I'm thinking of it as kind of something that's yes, it's a kind of subcategory of music theater, not musical theater, music theater, which is this experimental kind of late 20th century anti-opera that emerged, you could say. But then I think that it would benefit to take ideas and methods from dance theater and physical theater. Because I do think that the voice is it's a unique instrument. It's not like other instruments because you can combine it with text and because it's a biological structure first and foremost. It's not, and it's even processed, I think, psychologically differently for the musician because it's a biological structure. I will be working on trying to kind of discover, okay, what are the limits actually of vocal theater, what are its qualities, and how do we kind of situate it into this bigger context. And there are 2 figures and quotes from these figures that I want to share with you that have inspired this a lot. One of them I have already introduced to you, and that's Kathy Barbarian. She, in 1966, she wrote this manifesto called La Nuova Opera dell'Opera Contemporanea, the new vocality of contemporary works. What's interesting about both these artists that were mostly writing in the 60s is that they were all reacting in some ways to technology and entertainment. There's, I think, a presentation after this one about the media technology, this kind of thing. So I think that it would be pairing with this one, if you can go to that one. You can see here that Kathy Barbarian, she thinks of the voice in the 20th and then also 21st century as needing to evolve in order to kind of answer to a world that has all this entertainment and this expanded technology, that certainly singers need to learn a greater amount of skills, and that versatility is key, even in just the use of the voice. That's how I interpret this. Frankly, I think that she could write the same thing today in many ways. It hasn't changed that much. I think there's reasons for that, but then we would have to get into like vocal pedagogy and why that might be the case. And the second one is Polish Jacek Grotowski. He's considered the grandfather of physical theater. And he wrote Towards a Poor Theater. That's kind of his famous kind of collection of lectures and interviews that he did. He was published in English in 1968, but he was kind of writing throughout the 60s. And his big thesis was that theater cannot compete with new media. It therefore has to kind of lean on its strengths. And how he described poor theater was that by basically eliminating everything, makeup, lights, costumes, even and a stage, even in a place for the performers and the public, you are left with what the essence of theater, and that is just live communication between a live public and the performer. And so, because this spoke to me too much, I started asking myself, could we have a poor opera, and what would that look like? This is again in French, but I think you can read it even if you even if you only speak it. So I thought, okay, theater, physical theater is what is the practice that Milonovsky kind of launched. And the philosophy behind it was poor theater. So the idea of poverty in theater, the idea that we can't part it down to the bare essentials and that everything rests on the shoulders of the performer. There's no extra stuff around it. So then our philosophy could be for opera, and we can have a vocal theater as the practice, the set of practices, the ways that we approach creating works for opera. So I am at the very beginning of this research, and I haven't even started the doctorate yet. So it's really like preliminary. This is preliminary research that I've done. These are the questions that I'm asking, and I'm really looking forward to kind of like delving deeper. I have to say that these last 2 days with the students with whom I'm very impressed with their openness to what I was throwing at them, and I threw a lot at them. They were my guinea pigs a little bit for the 2 days. I didn't want to just use them as guinea pigs for my experiment, so I wanted to give them something that they can use, whether they want to do weird experimental stuff and make their own shows, or if they want to do traditional stuff. I think this will make them better at working with directors as well, and better also at doing just concerts. They want to, 2 of them are instrumentalists, so even if they just stand in front of a group of people playing, I hope that this can help them. This is kind of what we went through. Basic theatrical stuff. The idea of motivation is so important to anything that you do on stage. The idea that, and by the way, this is very connected to the harmony and conflict of idea of this conference, because actually on stage there always has to be conflict, and the conflict is about the desire of the person on stage or the people on stage, and what is standing in the way of attaining that desire, which can be encapsulated in this little formula. I don't really like formulas. I think that you can do it lots of different ways, but this is a formula that I learned at some point in acting classes, and it is I must do something in order to attain the thing that I want. And it's actually remarkable to me how almost universally, when you propose this to someone who is working on a scene, it lights up what they do. I mean, it suddenly puts something into their performance that is really amazing. Now, one thing that I realized during this work is that it's really challenging to take this basic kind of theatrical stuff, which I was pulling from like all of everything that I had ever kind of learned, and then combine it with the musical element, because the idea is that if for example, as we tried to kind of semi-improvise a little show of music theater, which you will see in a minute. You expand your musical imagination and your theatrical imagination at the same time. And then putting them together is what is really the challenge, it seems like. And I think that in the future I would maybe concentrate more on like the musical imagination earlier, so that we can put it together at the end better. Because, for example, we did the musical questions and answers, which is basically just you have an unresolved, you propose an unresolved phrase and the other person resolves it. Okay, so it's kind of just, and this can be, the students had a very good instinct for it. This can be something very total, but it can sometimes also be very atonal. Like it's all sorts of things. Then we had conversations. You can do conversations in a sung or played language. So a person might be playing, and the other person kind of reacts to it, and it becomes like a conversation, and then you add motivation to it. Like, one person wants this, the other person wants this, and then you try to kind of express that in the music. So we took from all this to, in like a couple hours, I think, create this little 3-minute etude that you will see. The idea of the etude was that every character would have like a leitmotif that they would repeat and transform as to express, whatever it was a question or an interrogation, or saying no, or anything like that. Like that it would have a different subtext every time. So they would have their music leitmotif and it would have a different subtext. This proved to be very actually challenging, and I'm very impressed with the students for accepting this challenge and for really going with it as much as they did. And I would say, I would just introduce it. I would just say that it's definitely in keeping with the themes of this conference, because it's definitely about conflict. And I will also, another thing I would say is that every story has its shape. So there's different shaped stories. So you can have the Cinderella story where you start very on the bottom and then you go to the top of the resolution and get what you desire. You have the fall from grace story where you start at the top and you end at the bottom. And I will let you decide. I think the shape of the story is very clear, but I will let you tell me afterwards. It's a very uncommon shape for a story, but very. So I will let Frame start our performance.
All the students, can we have them introduce themselves a little bit, who they are?
สวัสดีค่ะ My name is นาริศราจันทราสุขแสงค่ะสวัสดีค่ะชื่อนางสาวสุรตาคณีรันค่ะ
ครับ My name is นภัสแสงทับทิม
สวัสดีครับ My name is มาแสงเวทครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ Hello my name is พิชานวณีมานะค่ะ
What an exploration, like for real exploration for vocal theater, but not just vocal now, so many instruments. It's so amazing just like how one instrument can explore so many sounds and create, like communicate with one another. It's such a great exploration. Thank you for bringing it to our symposium this year. And anyone have any questions for Emma? Can I ask one question? Why do you come up with like all of these performances? Like, what is your thought process of start creating this?
Which performance?
From the beginning and how you transfer into your workshop here today.
Okay. I mean, I started with this. Oh, do you want me to speak into a mic? Is it easier? Okay. Okay. Just so dramatic. Just take into a microphone. I mean, the process. Ultimately, it's so. The creative process is like so messy and like. I mean, you can try to like sound really smart, trying to describe like your motivations for why you do things, and certainly there are principles. Like, you know, there's certain like technique. I would say there's a stage technique that dictates. For example, if you take an existing work and try to, as I did actually for my show in Lyon, I took a cappella piece for soprano by a German composer named Albert Reimann, and it was a setting of Lady Lazarus by Sylvia Plath. So there, I mean, the text obviously dictates how you would deal with it. The music dictates, and the kind of the demands, let's say, physically of the music dictate what you do with it, and then also the technique of what matters on the stage, or what communicates on the stage. I think one thing that I also realized working with the students is how important contrast and balance is. I think in any really work of art, it seems like there's something there having to do with this idea of juxtaposition at all times. If you stay too long within one thing and don't have a contrast. I mean, I think another way of looking at it, I was talking to a theater director, and she said that the most important thing she learned about directing theater is that there always has to be a change in power between characters. So as characters move through their world with their primary motivation, which should be from the beginning to the end, there should always be a constant transfer of who is on top, so to speak. So there's that. There's you know, the idea of contrast. There's the idea of motivation, which also writers think about. You know, every character has to want something, and their actions have to be motivated, and you discover who a character is through their actions. Those are, you know, just sort of basic things that both writers and theater people learn. And then I think actually, you know, musicians, especially if they want to do theatrical things, certainly singers, really need to kind of learn, almost like they learn their scales. So we kind of did like scales, like theatrical scales, these last two days, because it's actually amazing what it can do to a performance, actually. Yeah. But I wish I could tell you something more in terms of my solo show, which was an hour long. It's many different decisions over the course of 2 years that you make about what interests you. I'm really interested in the documentary element of things. So I love doing things that have a documentary element. In my show, I had actual excerpts, like live, like footage from interviews with Maria Callas, Elena Abramovich, Nina Simone, and Catherine Barbarian. So this idea of telling true stories, taking documentary elements and then juxtaposing them with something a little bit more fantastical is really interesting to me. But that's just personal taste. Like at that point, it becomes personal taste. So
Just a very simple question for the students. What will you bring from this work of the last 2 days to your continuous vocal and instrumental studies?
Thank you. Okay. For me personally, I would like to take the theatrical skills that we have learned with Emma to perform in our upcoming opera and our upcoming, the shows. And of course, when we sing, not only in the performance but also in the solo pieces, I think it's really helpful to help us express our character in the more efficient way.
And maybe to answer the question more fully, what is a specific exercise that you found?
Oh yeah, sure. For me, I think the exercise which us have the strings, like the strings, we have to express the energy like this. We have to feel ourselves to all of the room for the space, and I think it's better.
Yeah, it's just this idea of being kind of attached to the walls. I learned this in I think it was from a physical theater director. This idea of having a concrete point that you're going to, and then feeling kind of like this thing. It's also about feeling the space, because in theater it's really important to know where you are in space, and even as you are in your character. That's kind of the challenge, because for a long time you work on kind of like this really like inward stuff, but then it's like really pragmatic in the end, because you have to have a good sense that if your partner goes that way, you go this way, that you're always kind of thinking of the tableau, especially in semi-improvised things like this. Normally the director will tell you where to stand, but it's good to have like an instinct for that as well. So it's also about that feeling the space and understanding where you are in space and what is around. What about?
Okay, for me, as a voice student, I can use this workshop to improve my acting on the stage for another performance, such as my recital project or the next opera that I'm going to sing. And for acting class that I've learned with them, with she, to like a radiant the room make me more feel confident on the stage. Yeah, that's my answer.
For me, I am not a vocalist, and as a flutist, what I have to say is what I have learned from her is really good thing about singing, about the area space. When you have to perform on the stage, the first thing you need to know is the acoustic of the room that you have to send it before you play. So it helped me a lot, and the lot of workshop we did together is something like we have imitated each other's sound, and we play the same note again and again, like a kind of right motif, and it will be right. We have to play this melody again and again with not the same feeling. Thank you.
ค่ะขออนุญาตพูดภาษาไทยนะคะก็รู้สึกว่าพอได้มาทำโปรเจกต์นี้รู้สึกว่าสามารถนำไปใช้หรือว่าการสื่อสารดนตรีผ่านทางอารมณ์ได้มากขึ้นค่ะแล้วมันสามารถทำแบบไปใช้ในโชว์ตัวเองได้ในอนาคต
So for me, I think that when we are singing, we have to go into the character, so that we in what we what we have to do for what. So that when I come to in the scene, so I have to think before that. Okay, I have to do something like this for something to like I want in this scene. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ema, again, for working with these students. And I know that they've learned so much from you for the past few days. And please give one a big round of applause. What are your senses?
จะดูเหมือน